Hi guys, welcome back to OC Avery for episode 17 of Breeding British Birds. Now this episode we're going to do something different today. Instead of looking at all the birds and getting an update on how they all are, the goldfinch mules, the green finches, the bullfinches, the red poles, instead what my plan is this is going to be the last episode before episode 18, which is the season finale of Breeding British Birds. The season has finally come to an end. The birds have begun molting and we go from there. So what we're going to be doing today is looking at the show cages. We're going to be talking about the sizes, the different patterns. We're going to be looking at how to actually set up your show cage and the idea of, sort of what you need in it for the basics. And then we're going to be training some of the young birds for the first time in their young lives for the shows. And we're going to take a look at those birds. We're going to look where does it need work, and obviously how we're going to improve that over the next few months before the shows start. The first really being the national exhibition at Stafford in October, and we're just going to go through there. So instead, we're going to leave all the updates for our season finale next week. And for this week, let's have a look at the young birds in the show cages. So there's various types and sizes of show cage for the British birds. You do need to make sure that the birds are in the correct size show cage, and the reason being is that they're made specifically so that bird can't escape. Don't get me wrong, there are exceptions where you might get a very small greenfinch mule that could get out of a size 3, and you might get an extremely large red pole that would be better suited to a size 3 rather than the size 2. So just something there, but I would say the best thing that you can do if you're looking at starting showing British birds is starting with 2s and 3s. Now there's two patterns, there's English pattern and there's Scottish pattern, and the difference is about an inch in size. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, whether they both are accepted, at least in shows in England. So let's have a look at the show cages. So this is a size 3. Now this is greenfinch, bullfinch, northern bullfinch, northern goldfinch. Generally, most mules and hybrids, which exceed the size, I believe, of the red pole bully. So this is the sort of show cage you're going to use for a lot of the British birds. Chaffies, maybe brambles, yellowhammers. You would look at something a little larger for some of the largest. So you might be talking parrot, crossbill, hawfinch. Possibly parrot crossbill hybrids, if they're really large ones, maybe parrot crossbill mules, for example. So this is a size 3, and you're looking at a size 4 for any of the really large ones. Maybe larger bunting species as well. So snow buntings probably be better for a size 4. So that's. Well, there's actually two sort of different shades of colour, and you can see there's sort of a general British green, and then there's the it's sort of a more bluey green. Both are accepted, I believe. If you go on the BBC website, it does say the sort of standard and the sort of the code for the paint. So that's those, and you do need drinkers. So these are little green D cups, and they just hook on the front, and you've got the head hole for the bird to drink through there. So what you do with these then, if you are going to a show, you want a layer of seed on the bottom. So we put seed on the bottom so the birds have got plenty to eat. Don't worry about the water, the stewards will sort that for you at the show. And you'll put it in yourself. And now I would always recommend, when you are showing British birds like this and you've got your drinker on the front like that, never fill your drinker to the top, because that's going to encourage the birds to bathe. If the birds bathe, they really aren't going to be doing very well in that show, especially if they've only just bathed. They're going to go to the end of that class without fail if they're wet and soggy. So always, if you're doing it, fill it to halfway. The bird can get its head through there, get it down, and it can drink. But what it can't do is completely immerse its head in the water and bathe. So that's just my suggestion. Now for me, at least, when I'm doing seed in the bottom, I'm only going to be putting sort of the absolute standard British mix, and the reason being is that I don't want to waste it. To be honest, if you get some maybe an expensive bully mix and you put that in the bottom for your bullies or your greenies or what, it just ends up covered in poo because the birds have been on the sticks all day, jumping the sticks, pooing all over it at the show, and it doesn't look good, and the birds aren't really going to eat it. You want to clean it out. So that's just my suggestion. I always put the sort of the cheaper seed in that, which I'm using just as a base mix. Now, let's look at the smaller show cages. So these are size 2s. You can see we've got, again, the two different shades. We've got the more blue and the more green. So these are for the smaller natives and the smaller mules and hybrids. So generally red poll, siskin, native goldfinch, I believe mealy red poll as well, sort of miniature mules in these sizes, miniature hybrids, so you're talking probably red poll siskin, siskin mule, red poll mule, smaller red poll mules at least, miniature goldie mules, and stuff like that, and that's better. So just the same again with your D cup, they're exactly the same size, whether they're for a size 2 or a size 4. Just on the front like that, and fill it halfway, like I said earlier, and that's perfect. And then we've got a little access door. So just so you know, these cages have not been used since the show season of 2019. So yeah, so we've got a little door like that, and just perfect, easy to get into. Now with the show, you're going to want your sort of class and individual cage number. You'll stick that on there. Now I always just used Pritt stick sort of glue. You can use sticky back tape. I've used that previously. However, the issue I found when doing that, you put that on, it rips your paint off, and then you have to repaint your cage. So just literally a Pritt stick, some normal glue, just stick that on there and it should be fine. And then you can get your first badge hopefully on there as well, and your rosette. So that's your setup you need for your cage. I paint these every year, and between every show, sand down the perches, give them a good clean, they're all good to go. So now what I've done is chosen 4 birds that we're going to take a look at and compare. We've got 2 green finches, a normal and a pied, and we've got 2 red polls. We've got a brown pastel and we've got a normal. They're at different stages in the molt. We've got the normal greenie and the normal red poll are young. They're about 30 or 35, 40 days old, and the pied greenie and the brown pastel are about 55, 60 days old. So, they are different stages in the molt. So let's take a look at them now. So I've decided we're going to begin with a red poll. Now this is a fantastic normal bird. It's literally about 30 to 35 days old. Not long since moved out to the flights, and it's doing brilliant. Now I must say this bird was bred from a normal pastel split brown pastel to a cobalt hen, and it's just come out, quite a different bird. Now, as you can see, we've got some amazing markings on the chest and flanks of this bird, which gives me promise. Don't get me wrong, this bird has not molted yet, and we can't say that it's going to keep them. But what we do see is a difference when we compare it to other normal youngsters. It's got a real darkness about it, but it's not a cobalt, it is a normal. And those markings are really quite well defined, and I think this is a brilliant example of a young red poll, and we can't say that it's going to be great when it's an adult, but let's hope. Now, one of the first things you can notice about this bird as well is that it isn't thrashing around in a cage. Now, steadiness is something that you do have to train into the birds, but it's also bred into them. Over generations of captive breeding, the birds become more accustomed to the presence of humans, and therefore don't panic as much when with us, and then also are more comfortable in those smaller spaces, such as a show cage. So where does this bird need improvement? Well, this is the first time it's been in a show cage, and I'd say overall it's working quite well. It's obviously showing itself all right, but what it is doing a lot is keeping, it's going to the floor. So when I'm training this bird, and remember when it's first training, you're talking half an hour a day, what I'll probably be looking to do is try and do something to keep the bird on the perches and looking at the front. So it might be a case of hanging a mealworm or a piece of string on the front of that cage, just to try and draw its attention to the front, get itself to work the perches and show itself more. So that is a young normal red poll. I hope you like that bird, and I think this is a really nice example of a youngster. So I'm looking forward to see how it develops over the next few weeks, and then After it's molted out fully, we'll have a look at it as an adult, and we'll compare it to its adult self. We'll compare it to itself when it was a youngster. Now immediately when you see this bird, you can tell it's a little bit more skitty. It's coming onto the wire a little bit more than I'd be wanting to. So what we want to be doing is trying to get that bird more away from it. Now just remember that this bird is actually molting. It's halfway through the molt now, so I don't want to be leaving the cage too long and stressing it out, so only a short period of time do we want it in that cage at any one point. So this, like I said earlier, is a brown pastel. You can see it's got the little the red poll actually coming on its forehead. So yeah, I mean, we know this is a guaranteed hen as well because of the way it was bred. But overall, it's a nice bird. We can't be a really good judge of it yet because it hasn't fully molted, and will still need training. It will need time, and we're just going to have to work on that. So overall, I do think it's a nice bird. But when we compare it to the previous bird, it's not shown itself as much. It's a little bit fast over the perches, and it's coming on the front more than we'd like. However, what's better about this bird compared to the other one is that it isn't on the floor much. It is working those perches, but let's just try and keep it away from that front just a little bit, just to stop it going on. So I think the best way of doing that would be really to sort of put something to distract it. Maybe make something so it can't hop onto the front. If when it's cooler, maybe we put something over the mesh, or something that just makes it not want to hold onto that as often. So if we try maybe just putting our hand forward, we can just try and keep it on the perches. It's something to look at anyway. And what we'll do is we'll get all the youngsters out in batches, and we'll do that in another video. And we'll get all the show cages out, and we're going to do our own little show with the youngsters. And we'll have a look at them. We'll have a little sort of a ranking session at some of probably the better birds, who's going to be making the show team for this year, and how we get on there. So now onto the green finches. This bird here, I believe it's a young cock bird, by the look of the colour coming on the chest, and obviously the golden yellow bars down the flight feathers. So this is a bird from my better pair of normals, and I must say it is quite a big bird. It does look good, and it does look a strong bird, but as you can already see from this, it just needs some time in that cage to sort of find itself, get a bit more comfortable with the perches. Obviously, being a youngster and being the first time it's been in a show cage, you can't expect it to perform fantastically, and that's said for every bird, and some birds will be better at it than others, and you will get that odd bird that will perform like it's an adult bird and it's been fantastic in a show cage, and you'll get other birds that may never settle in a show cage. But this is a good looking bird. It's got some weight to it, it's got some good size to it. The colour, I'm not going to be able to say if that's a yellow or a buff yet. I think we're going to have to wait until it's molted to have a proper assessment of that bird. But over it looks good. Now, where does this need improving? Well, it seems to be an awful lot on the floor and to the left hand side of this cage, and on the perches. On the mesh on the front. So again, it'll be a case of trying to shoo it off the front and just get it to calm down a bit. And perhaps we'll not put any food in at the bottom. And they'll only be in for short periods of time. Remember, we're literally talking half an hour tops, just to try and draw them off the floor a bit where possible. Now, you can see it does seem to be going towards this corner, so I think just getting your hand in a little bit, just trying to steer that bird away from the front, and like that, as you can see, it's actually working the perches now pretty much. So let's get you back on the perches. Okay, let's not spook it too much. So I've pulled away, and I think it's just a case of just having a bit of patience with them and letting them find themselves, and in no time that bird should hopefully take to the perches and the show cage without a problem. Then last up is a pied green finch. So this, I believe, is a young cock bird by the look of the colour again. So automatically, what you can notice is that this is in the same size show cage as the previous bird, and this is a much smaller bird, but that's to be expected because of what I've done for the pieds, and how they've been bred is that they've been bred from small pied cockbirds to larger hens, and the idea being is that I can develop that line over time, increase size, make better colour, and hopefully that'll get me a better bird now. This is the bird that's we had reared by canaries, so it's gonna need some time to put some size on. But it is the capped bird, and that pied is almost white on the head. So it'd be interesting to see how it molts out. But you know, this is, I could almost guarantee you that this is a buff bird, but it does show quite a bit of grey. So this is not going to be a bird that we're going to be looking to take to the shows. I don't think any of the pieds will be, to be honest. Just because they're not there, and I don't expect them to be for a good few years yet until I've developed them further. But I think something to notice about this bird is it is working the perches more. It's generally not going on the floor, but it does need to try and get off off the front of the cage when we compare it to the last one. So it's just, again, it's just something that we're just going to have to keep practicing with. We'll go from there and see what we can do. But overall, I do like this bird. You know, it is a darker pied bird, so we've got it. It's a pied cap. It's got a bit of pied on the shoulders and one or two flight feathers and a tail feather, and that's about it, to be honest. Will the pieds be staying on for the future? Hopefully one or two of these guys. We'll look at maybe getting one of these, putting it into a line of maybe a good normal hen or so, and then we'll just slowly push it forward from there, and move that line of pieds forward to hopefully getting some good sized better birds, which would be nice. So that's a pied green finch cock youngster, about 50 to 60 days old, so not too bad, and we'll catch up with them all in the next few weeks, how they're getting on. And then, like I said earlier, at the end of the molt, once they've all come through, we'll have our own little show. We'll visit each individual bird. We'll look at the standard for this year from the BBC or the IOA, and we'll move it from there and see what points, you know, where are we hitting and where needs work, because overall that's what I'm looking to do, is improve the birds as much as possible and get them closer to that standard and the model. And then by identifying where the faults are and where we need to improve, we can look at maybe what outcrossers do we need to bring that into the stud, and hopefully improve it over the next few years. So there's a few more things I just need to talk about in this video in regards to shows. So the first one being about head holes. I have had a few questions, and there's usually a few questions on Facebook, especially around the show season, of actually how to get the birds to put their head through that head hole and drink. Usually they'll just find it, but what you do have to do at that point is fill it up to the brim so they can actually see the water, so they know it's there, and then they'll drink. And then if you slowly raise that level over time, they'll understand that that's where the water is, and it's fine. But another way I've found is taking a bird that you've already shown. So you're always looking at an adult bird, and generally I'll go for a bird that I've taken to shows numerous times. It knows exactly what it's doing, and what happens is that the young birds learn from it. So you've got, for example, we've got an adult cock green finch who's 3 years old. He's been to quite a few shows. You've got him in a cage like this, and you have him, you know, in view of another young bird. The young birds will then copy the adult bird and learn from that. So that's just one way, is that they'll put the head through that drink hole and go from there. So that's one way. Yeah, that's two different ways of training them. I use both, just make it easy for them. So then, what about show birds? Now I know that quite a few viewers of my channel are people who look, you know, who keep just pet birds. Don't get me wrong; these are all my pets, but they're not. They're not the average cage bird you have in your living room to play with on your finger. These are different, and just something which I think is misunderstood more than anything, is that Barry the budgie or Colin the canary, who lives in the house, who is finger trained, who is a pet bird, who comes out and plays in the living room, is not a show bird, and could never be a show bird. Don't get me wrong, if you want to take that bird to a show and you had him in the correct cage and you really want to do that just for this experience of going to a show, then by all means, but that bird would never be able to win a show or even place, to be honest. If you take the average pet budgie, it's completely different to a show budgie. An exhibition budgie is a very big bird, it's very heavily feathered, it's got a very huge head, and you look at a pet budgie and it's much smaller, and it's completely different. Same for a canary. Generally you'll find a canary at the pet shop, and it's a mongrel canary, and it's got Irish fancy, fife, and probably no colour in it, and it's just a variegated bird generally, is what you find at a pet shop, and it doesn't meet any standard, and it isn't a specific breed, and you'll never show a mongrel canary. So that's just some things to mention, is just so you guys, if you are a pet bird keeper, is what it actually is, and how that works. Just it just helps you guys out. And if this is something you want to get into, comment below, go on my Facebook, go on my Instagram, get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to point you in the right direction and help you out. And that's not just me, I'm sure a lot of fanciers would be delighted to have some more people coming into this hobby. Quite a few people packing in recent years. I've got a few friends who are packing in this year, sadly. So it'd be great if we can try and grow the hobby, get a lot more people in it, especially younger people. Myself, I'm 18. The support and help I've had over the past few years, being a youngster, novice, getting into the British bird hobby, getting into the canary scene, going in with that has been phenomenal. And I'm pretty sure, I'm confident in saying that you would be greeted with open arms to do that. And if you want to just come to a show and you want to see what it's like, you're more than welcome to. Now that does bring me on to Stafford. Stafford is so far confirmed for October. I believe it's October the 3rd, Sunday, October 3rd. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to hopefully be showing in the national exhibition, providing it's on for the British birds. So hopefully you want to come to that, and if you do, then I will be there. You can come and have a chat with me. You're more than welcome to, and I'm more than happy to help you out, take you around, show you some birds, show you my birds in the exhibition once it's all been judged, and so forth, and just have a good time. And you don't have to win first, you don't have to win Best British, you don't have to win the big classes to have a great time at a show. You can come away from a show with no wins and still be happy, because you've met people who do the same thing as you. You've spent all day talking with them, chatting with them, and it'd be great to have a lot of people there. So if you would like to, the national exhibition at Stafford, don't get me wrong, it's not just an exhibition, it's a huge bird sale. There's thousands and thousands of people there, and there's tens of thousands of birds. We took canaries, British, poultry, parrots, budgies, literally most birds that you can think of are there. There's even birds there which I didn't think you could keep. I've seen avocets, I've seen lapwings, I've seen dunlins. I've seen some birds at the the national exhibition, the Stafford shows, both the autumn and the spring shows, that you never expect to see. So there's something, there's a bird there for everyone, and that's for sure. There's so much equipment, there's so much available. So please come down to Stafford October 3rd, and I'll see you there. A quick something I just want to mention before we go to the end of this video is about a certain bird that we've got in with the red poles. Now, we bred a red pole earlier on this season. It was in the first round from the normal pastel, split brown pastel cock to a cobalt hen. This is the bird. Now, I don't know what colour this bird is, what mutation it is, and I'd like to see if anyone else would know, have a guess. Just comment below what you think it could be, or message me or something like that, because I've not seen this mutation before. I've considered sort of maybe it's a cobalt pastel. But if it was a cobalt pastel, I believe it'd be darker. It sort of, I don't know how best to describe it. You've sort of put a basically you've kind of got a brown cobalt and shoved it in with an agate cobalt, and it's sort of a weird nutty brown colour with obviously the overall ash grey look. So if you know what mutation it is, comment below. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think it is, and well, we'll have to see what it malts out like when it's fully malted and as an adult bird. Anyway guys, that does bring me to the end of this week's video, episode 17 of Breeding British Birds. Next week is going to be the last episode, episode 18, the series finale of Breeding British Birds. We're going to be looking at the youngsters, which have finally left the nest. Those guys looking great. I really hope that you're going to like them. We've got the golden mule, we've got red poles, we've got green finches, we've got bullfinches. We're going to be able to look at all of those in next week's episode, and they'll be the final youngsters of the 2021 breeding season. We'll have a good time in that episode for sure. Just remember as well, at the start of August is, at the start of every month, we're going to do a monthly live stream. So make sure you're on my Facebook and my Instagram, so you're notified every time that I'm going to do that, and you're going to see exactly when the live video is going to be. So hopefully you guys can come, you can join in, you can interact with me, we can have a chat and just have a good time. So anyway guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it and you'd like to see more, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.